Part 99. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 981. Along the way, Jin and Yu were attacked by many white shadows. There were as few as one, and as many as a dozen, but in the face of their strong suppression, these white shadows could not make any waves. Lin Yi also basically saw the upper limit of the power of these white shadows. Their power is indeed strange and can decompose everything, but there is an upper limit to this power. The upper limit is about 10 times the energy fluctuation of the Tianxian Dao level. Once it exceeds, there is no way to fight back. As he moved forward, he saw many things. The city is littered with corpses that have turned into bones, and these corpses are so fragile that they break into pieces when touched. There is no spiritual energy left in the city. The only thing left is a vacuum filled with various particles and these mysterious indivisible buildings. Time passed by, and about an hour later, while stumbling, they finally arrived in the center of the city. In the center is a huge altar that looks like a Mayan pyramid. This altar sits quietly here, with a huge stone monument on it. The height of the altar is about 100 meters, and the length and width are almost 100 meters, which is very standard. Lin Yi could tell at a glance that the altar was solid, had no internal structure, and was made of indivisible matter. However, this altar is densely covered with countless lines and a large number of strange, never before seen words. This kind of text was analyzed bit by bit in the eyes of Zhenming Daija, and countless information impacted Lin Yi's mind. This is a brand new rule that is completely different from the rules of the void, and its complexity is definitely no worse than the rules of matter and energy. What these words record is the secret of the rules. This rule seems to point to indivisible matter. But this is just one rule. With just a cursory observation, he discovered that these words contained at least 9 different rules. Lin Yi seemed to have discovered a new world, with a look of surprise in his eyes. Is this a civilization that can rival the ancient gods and create rules? A completely new rule system that is completely different from the 5 and 8 rules. His expression changed slightly, and there was a hint of solemnity in his eyes. Start to quickly memorize all the words on this mysterious altar. It is impossible to parse all these words in a short time, and memory is the best. Soon he memorized all the words, and there were 9 1UN numbers in total. Every brand new rule seems to be recorded in words of $1. He felt unbelievable in his heart that this $1 of text could actually record a complete innate rule comparable to matter and energy, which simply exceeded his imagination. What kind of civilization is this? Is it so scary? At this time, Jin Yu and the others seemed to have noticed the magic of these words. Jin Yu said in disbelief, "Is this a rule woven from words? What kind of civilization is this? You can actually use words to frame paper rules. Is this the secret hidden by the ancient gods? They created the 5 and 8 rules because they learned the methods of this civilization." The black robe and the shadow did not speak, but their eyes flashed with blazing light as they frantically memorized these words. But they soon discovered a problem. No, these words cannot be remembered with the soul. Even memories are quickly forgotten. When Jin Yu said this, a wonderful book appeared in his hand. After opening it, it was blank. Then a power filled his hands, and he wrote these mysterious words on the first page of the book. The next moment, these mysterious words disappeared from the book, and it seemed that they could not be preserved at all. Next, the 3 of them tried various methods, whether it was time, matter, space, soul, or energy. There is no way these words can leave any trace. It was as if they could only exist on this mysterious altar. Lin Yi's memory was carried out through the true fate explanation. The secrets of these words were all in the true fate explanation's true fate, so he bypassed these restrictions. However, the 3 people in front naturally would not give up, and saw a golden spiritual power rushing out of Jin Yu's body. These psychic powers coalesced before him into a golden book. The golden book slowly opened, and there seemed to be countless messages flashing inside. Looking at this scene, Lin Yi's eyes moved slightly. He has already seen that this golden book is constructed from the power of the soul. It is a concrete product that can exist on the spiritual level. This is the second time he has seen someone cultivate their spiritual power to such a high level. His spiritual power cannot reach this level and can only be used through Deo Mark. Of course, true destiny is not at all subject to this restriction. His eyes were shining with the light of true destiny, and he was quickly observing the mystery of the composition of this golden book. This is a power worth learning from the Blue Star clone. The golden book has turned to a new page, and the power of the soul constitutes these mysterious words. The power of the mind is really special. The words that could not be saved actually stayed on the golden book. Seeing that the power of the soul was useful, Jin Yu's face showed unprecedented joy. The words were recorded one by one quickly. Every time he remembered a word, he felt that his golden book seemed to become more powerful, and it seemed to be able to carry more spiritual power. Black Robe and Shadow seemed to have their own spiritual power. Seeing that Jin Yu's method worked, they immediately followed suit. In front of Black Robe was a black stone slab, and in front of Shadow was a black gem. Without exception, in Lin Yi's eyes, these objects made of the mind contained wonderful information. This information seemed to be the essence of the power of the three of them, that kind of eternal breath, a completely qualitative change of information. Is this the life before the void created the price? Their eternal essence information. How did all of them integrate into the power of the mind? What effect will it have if the essence of eternity is integrated into the mind? There is only one explanation: the power of the mind surpasses their eternal way. With countless information flashing in his mind, Lin Yi quietly analyzed their behavior patterns. Half an hour passed in a flash, and Jin Yu and the other two finally recorded 9 rules through the power of the mind. Each of them seemed to have made a huge gain, and the spiritual items they created seemed to have become more powerful. The spiritual power that flowed out of their bodies was also several times greater. Their gains were extremely huge, and even directly increased their power limit, which was incredible. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 982. Jin Yu looked at the huge altar. What do you think this thing is? It looks so mysterious. The stone tablet on it is also very strange. When I saw it, there should be nothing on it, but something appeared in front of my eyes from time to time. Maybe we have to get closer to know its secret. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Jin Yu and the shadow looked at him, and saw Jin Yu raised his hand and waved. As if it was a void creation, a ball of golden light jumped out of his hand, and turned into a figure after a roll on the ground. This figure looks no different from Jin Yu, and is also wrapped in golden bandages, and there is also a body there. The black robe on the side exclaimed, "Your void creation method is becoming more and more mature. It already has a bit of the flavor of the ancient god." Jin Yu did not speak, and the golden bandaged figure in front of him flashed and disappeared in front of him. When he reappeared, he had come to the foot of the altar. After a few rises and falls, he jumped onto the altar and stood in front of it. Jin Yu waved his hand casually, and a light curtain appeared in front of them. A black stone tablet flashed in the light curtain. The surface of the black stone tablet looked very smooth, and there seemed to be no words or patterns on it. But when they looked at the stone tablet carefully, inexplicably, a mysterious voice appeared in their hearts. They had never stopped this voice, but they could understand its meaning. The infinite and endless converge into the original, and the end of all living beings returns to me. This is an ancient and mysterious language, which contains boundless majesty and mystery. When the three heard this, a kind of awe and deep fear rose in their hearts inexplicably. They seemed to see a great existence that held up the infinite and looked down on everything in the world, as if the final destination of everything was him. This instinctive fear made them inexplicably feel that this sentence contained the final outcome of all living beings. What is this? Did you feel it too? The black robe nodded. This sound seems to be left by a certain existence. It's too scary. I can't imagine what kind of existence he is. Just this sentence makes me shudder. The shadow's mind was very cold. It's dangerous. The three figures were very silent, and their eyes couldn't help but look outside the city. Outside the city is an endless primitive state, which seems to indicate that the final destination of all things in the world will gather here. The first half of the mysterious voice confirmed the second half of the sentence, the end of all living things belongs to me. This is what made their scalps numb. They felt that this mysterious altar seemed to be for communicating with some existence that could not be described in words. Is there a great existence in this world that we don't know about? This is impossible. We were born before the void, in the primitive state. How can there be a greater existence than us? The three people's hearts were in fierce conflict, and that voice made them feel an irresistible terror. Like a deep seed, it was deeply embedded in the deepest part of their hearts and could not be removed at all. The intense thoughts even drifted to the entire ruined city. Lin Yi saw their thoughts through the true destiny solution. Feeling the source of their shock, a trace of solemnity appeared in his eyes. An existence that is more mysterious and great than these great existences before the void. What exactly is this place? Is this city built by a civilization that believes in this great existence? And this altar is for worshipping and communicating with him. Why would such a powerful civilization be destroyed? Is this more ancient and great existence still has an enemy that can rival it? Countless mysteries flashed in his mind, and he felt that there were too many secrets hidden in the void that could not be explained at all. At this time, three figures had walked down from the huge altar. Although they had gained a huge harvest, their breath was a little low. They seemed to have seen their final end, an end that they could not resist. It took them a long time to wake up from the deterrence of this fear. Jin Yu said in a low voice, "We are affected by this message. I have completely eliminated this message from my mind, heart, and soul. Only the impression of its existence remains, and we must be vigilant against it. No matter how dangerous the owner of this message is, we only need to remember one thing. Keep getting stronger, and everything will be solved." Although Jin Yu and the other two were affected by this message just now, they quickly reacted. They killed the existence of this mysterious will in the first place and regained their confidence. Ancient existence, having seen too many things. Even this mysterious existence cannot really make them afraid. All fear comes from the weakness of strength and the shallowness of knowledge. As long as they continue to increase their strength, they will naturally become stronger and stronger, and eventually reach the level of the owner of this will, or even surpass him. Lin Yi, who has been lurking underground, can see the changes in the breath of these three people clearly. He even saw a mysterious spiritual power appear in the souls of these three people, secretly influencing them. Just a short time after these three people carefully looked at the stone tablet. These three guys killed part of their souls to eliminate the traces of this spiritual power, and he saw it all. He felt compensated for the decisiveness of these three powerful beings. At this time, Lin Yi was constantly observing the stone tablet on the altar. He could see a spiritual trace hidden in the altar. The essence of this trace even surpassed the spiritual power mastered by these three mysterious people. The spiritual power levels that Lin Yi had seen so far can be divided into two categories. The first category is the martial arts system of Blue Star, which condenses the Dao trace, connects the material and spiritual levels, and introduces the power of the mind into the real world through the Dao trace. The mind acts as a driving force to drive the Dao trace to produce incredible phenomena and distort the rules of reality. This is the first level of the use of spiritual power. The second level of the use of spiritual power is that these three ancient beings in front of him and the mysterious figure who once ambushed him directly master the power of the mind. It condensed into a wonderful spiritual creation, allowing the power of the mind to directly interfere with the real world, with incredible power. Now this stone tablet seems to be the third level of spiritual ability, all that Lin Yi is thinking about. This is an indescribable power that seems to be able to descend directly into the minds of other people and can affect the other party's mind and will. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 983. If the second level is that the mind affects the material and real world, then the third level is that it can affect the minds of other life forms, which is even more terrifying. Countless possibilities flashed through Lin Yi's mind, deducing the mystery of this power. He felt that if this spiritual power continued to work, the three great life forms in front of him seemed to have their minds eroded and turned into puppets or carriers of some kind of existence. As long as you see the stone tablet, your mind will be affected. However, Lin Yi's mind has the spiritual wave sphere as its foundation, and this power seems to have no way to affect him. The moment it descended into his mind, it was blocked by his spiritual wave, unable to distort and erode his soul and spirit. However, the consumption of spiritual waves to offset the spiritual power in the stone tablet is very amazing. It consumes more than 10 times more than resisting the spiritual power of the second level. That is to say, my spiritual wave is at least at the third level, or even at the fourth level, which is higher than the third level. With countless thoughts flashing in his mind, Lin Yi thought, what is the origin of the Yiling Jing? The unfinished 6 true destinies have already reached the fourth level of spiritual power. If all 7 true destinies are completed, what level can be achieved? Can it reach the 5th level of spiritual power? Just now, these people recorded the rules on the altar on their spiritual creations. Then the spiritual power that their spiritual creations can carry seems to have increased many times. That is to say, the rules are something that can be used by the gods, is the existence that can affect the mind. And now there is another problem. The spiritual power they use already exists in their minds. There is no upper limit or consumption phenomenon, which is completely different from the spiritual wave I possess. If my spiritual wave is spiritual energy, it should be endless. But the upper limit of my spiritual wave power is actually increased by killing strange beings. It seems to show that my spiritual wave should not be spiritual power. The Yiling Jing is really mysterious. What is its origin? In Lin Yi's mind, countless thoughts and thoughts flashed in a short time. The more he knew and the more information he had, the more shocked Lin Yi was about the existence of spiritual waves. He always felt that spiritual waves were not just simple spiritual power. Although they were similar, they were qualitatively different. But to reach the second level of the mind, you must obtain the nature of eternity. For the immortal system, the essence of eternity is that the true spirit is immune to the 5 major rules, and then combines with the power of the mind to produce spiritual creations. For the Blue Star martial arts system, it is the completion of the Daohen universe. All information is combined with the true spirit to become the true spirit universe, which receives infinite spiritual power and finally becomes a spiritual creation at the level of the mind, the spiritual universe. This is the path after eternity. No matter what kind of eternity it is, its essence can produce the final combination with the power of the mind. Lin Yi's mind quickly calculated the path of the mind, thinking in his heart. Could it be that all the endpoints of cultivation, the so-called eternal level, are preparations for entering the level of the mind? Lin Yi's consciousness can enter the spiritual level at will through the spiritual wave sphere. He knows very well that the spiritual level is endless darkness, and only his own mind is shining. If the path after entering the eternal level in the real world is the spiritual level, that means that there may be beings who can shuttle freely at the spiritual level, and they can get close to the minds of others. In an instant, he thought of the trip of Long Gang people, when the weird nature was involved in the spiritual level. Before being completely digested by the spiritual wave ball, many people in the Wanchaiwa felt a huge danger at that moment. Something terrible was staring at them. And all this was connected to all the information so far, and Lin Yi had an idea in his mind. Could it be that the spiritual level, as I thought, the so-called soul is in it? It's just far away. Then if someone erases the other person's soul at the spiritual level, what will happen to that person in reality? Thinking of this, a creepy feeling rose in Lin Yi's heart. This is not good. Maybe the spiritual level is more dangerous than I thought. The dark jungle law, whoever is exposed first will face death. Looking at the stone tablet on the altar again, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. The voice of the soul just now, the end of all living beings belongs to me. Could it mean this? The souls of all living beings will be twisted by it, and eventually devoured by it, becoming a part of it. In an instant, Lin Yi felt his scalp tingling, and a piercing chill rose from the bottom of his heart. He seemed to see some terrifying existences lurking in the soul level, staring at the dark void with a covetous look. Waiting for the soul to show traces, and then attracting these existences to devour these souls. If my guess is true, then these terrifying existences devour other people's souls for two reasons. One is to survive, and the other is to be strong. But no matter which one, it indicates one thing. The soul level is the starting point of true freedom and danger. What eternal level, outside level are just the real world. The mind is the most essential thing of a living being. Without the mind, the living being will either die or become something unknown. Suddenly, a thought flashed through Lin Yi's mind again. This is where the ancient gods sealed. That is to say, the ancient gods knew the power of this stone tablet. Could it be that the ancient gods disappeared because they also calculated the danger of the spiritual world? So they embarked on the road to the spiritual world and abandoned everything in this world. So they will really disappear. Everything seemed to have an explanation, and Lin Yi's eyes sparkled. At this moment, he seemed to understand why the ancient gods wanted to seal this place. Because this stone tablet will bring unimaginable disasters, once known by countless lives. It is equivalent to lighting countless torches at the spiritual level, guiding the way for the existence behind this stone tablet. A hunt that swept countless lives will begin. With a chill in his heart, countless conjectures suddenly arose in Lin Yi's mind. If the will in the stone tablet was created specifically to expose the minds of all living beings at the spiritual level, then what about the civilization of the priests? The house of everything I created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 984. This destroyed civilization may be the minions of a certain existence in the spiritual level. Who attacked this civilization? Thinking of himself being watched by a mysterious gaze in the twisted strange land, he let himself die once to avoid the lock of the gaze, and another idea came to his mind. Could it be? Behind these two forces, there is a terrifying existence in the spiritual level. In order to compete for food, the minions of the lower world fought. Based on the current ruins results, these two civilizations should have perished together, otherwise, there would be no information about them in the void. This also explains a problem. Existences at the spiritual level cannot easily project their will to the material level. They also need some kind of coordinates or assistance to project the will of the distorted life mind to the material world, and then affect the entire life form in the void, so that their mind is exposed at the spiritual level. A complete food chain appeared in Lin Yi's mind, making him tremble instinctively. It's really terrifying. Is this the secret hidden in this sealed land? At this time, Jin Yu and the other two walked down the altar with heavy faces. They did not intend to stay here any longer. They vaguely felt a huge shadow shrouding their hearts. They felt that the will in the stone tablet seemed to bring them some kind of danger. Even if they cut off all traces of that information in their souls, the danger did not seem to disappear. The three people were worried and returned in the direction they came from, ready to find a way to go back and solve the crisis that shrouded their hearts. Lin Yi just looked at them calmly. Through the analysis just now, he already understood. The hearts of these three people should have been exposed to the eyes of the mysterious existence. Perhaps these three people will be attacked soon and eventually die. Even if they condensed the creation of the mind and integrated their eternal nature, they might not be able to escape. Even for that kind of existence, they are a feast. Because this is a completely unknown attack, a battle of a new level, all past experience is useless. Lin Yi slowly rose from the ground, stood in front of the altar, turned his head and looked at the ruins, thinking. Perhaps all the materials in this relic were not produced normally. Instead, they were indivisible materials created by some great beings using the power of the mind. His heart was slightly heavy. The more powerful the terrifying existence at the spiritual level, the longer it meant that the road ahead was. The eternal level was not the end, but just the beginning. It was the beginning of contacting a higher level, a darker and more terrifying world. He exhaled deeply. Forget it, no matter what is behind it. I have only one goal, to condense the spiritual Dao Trace universe. Deducing the seventh true destiny. Completing the real Yuling Sutra. Only then can we truly move towards freedom. The biggest enlightenment of this trip to the ruins for Lin Yi was that he completely understood his future. All the eternal ways are just to pave the way for the spiritual level. The disappearance of the ancient gods must be related to the spiritual level. Weirdness is not the only reason for the disappearance of the ancient gods. Lin Yi took a deep breath. Forget it, I don't want to think about it anymore. It's time to explore the twisted gray abyss, where there may be strange secrets. Just when Lin Yi was about to leave, an inexplicable shadow shrouded the sky. He couldn't help but look up, and his pupils shrank. An extremely huge and terrifying white shadow slowly passed through the primitive state and also passed through the ruined city. The white shadow that could not be seen at a glance was filled with terrifying fluctuations that decomposed everything. What is this? The creature in the primitive state. With deep shock, he watched this terrifying existence that was billions of meters in size slowly flow to the front of the torrent until it disappeared without a trace. The world is really vast and boundless, and contains too many secrets. Turning around and walking in the direction he came from, he fell far behind the three people. About an hour later, Lin Yi passed through the primitive state, the dark vacuum, the tall and endless giant wall, and the mysterious dark door, and returned to the twisted area. He had roughly understood the secret behind the dark side gate. Next, he would continue to investigate what exactly was going on with this mysterious distortion. When he left the dark side gate, Jin Yu and the other two had already disappeared. Apparently, the three left in a hurry to deal with the danger that was looming in their hearts. Lin Yi no longer paid attention to the three people who disappeared, and turned into a stream of light, escaping towards the center of the distortion area. Soon he passed through the deep darkness and came to the border of a gray distortion area. He looked at the gray distortion area, which was the center of this huge distortion area. The gray distortion was expanding outward. When it was about 50 kilometers in diameter, the gray distortion began to turn black. The black gradually covered the mountain area where the dark side gate was located, forming a ring-shaped distortion structure. Then this ring-shaped area would expand outward again, with a width of about 100 kilometers. Finally, the outermost hazy and dark distortion area was formed. This distortion area is composed of three structural levels. Now, he is about to enter the deepest third-layer structure. The last time he came, he had to evacuate because of the huge consumption of spiritual waves. At this time, he stood in front of the gray distortion boundary, quietly looking at the scene in front of him, with a trace of solemnity in his eyes. He stepped slowly into this gray distortion world. In an instant, the terrifying distortion force descended on him. He felt a force that seemed to twist him into pieces, and even the most basic structure of his body was twisted into a spiral. The spiritual wave was being consumed rapidly, ignoring the damage of this distortion. Every moment, his spiritual wave limit was increasing, and the spiritual wave was constantly emerging. As long as his spiritual wave consumption could not exceed the recovery speed, all dangers would not be a problem for him. Standing in this gray distortion, quietly feeling the influence of this power on himself. A faint smile appeared on his face, and now this distortion could no longer pose a threat to him. The spiritual waves consumed were less than 1/1000 of the spiritual waves that were growing all the time. After making sure that everything was fine, Lin Yi began to stride forward, running towards the center of the distortion, the abyss area. The house of everything I created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 985. As he continued to move inward, the damage caused by the distortion was also increasing, but it was still within his tolerance range. Just after Lin Yi advanced a few kilometers, the anomaly began to appear. A twisted vortex appeared silently behind him. In the vortex, an arm-like twisted smoke slowly stretched out. It inserted straight into Lin Yi's back, and he didn't react at all. It wasn't until the hand pierced his chest that he noticed the attack. The spiritual wave was quickly consumed, and Lin Yi casually pointed at the back. 5 forces gathered at his fingertips and turned into a pure wave of destruction. The white vortex behind him couldn't even struggle, and was pierced by a ray of light, and then exploded directly. After doing all this, Lin Yi continued to move forward. White twisted vortices continued to appear around him, and various limbs appeared in them. Some were claws, some were hands, some were heads, and even had terrifying alien mouths. These things appeared out of thin air, which was very strange. However, Lin Yi countered all the attacks along the way, and his true destiny made him fearless. The power of the 5 paths was always bursting with destructive lethality. The upper limit of the power of these attacks extended from the distortion is about 10 times the fluctuation of the level of the heavenly immortal path. Now Lin Yi has almost reached this level of power through the conflict of the 5 powers. Only then can all these mysterious phenomena that attack him be disintegrated. Otherwise, he will continue to consume spiritual waves in more and more weird phenomena. Although the spiritual waves are replenished in an endless stream in the war outside, it is not a comfortable thing to be beaten by others all the time. Finally, he came to the border of the twisted abyss. Under his feet is a gray-white rock composed of countless twisted whirlpools. The twisted power permeates every corner of this world, even in the rocks. He looked at these rocks, and the most basic particles that make up the rocks are twisted and weird shapes. This power is really weird, twisting all matter. He looked at the abyss, which was filled with extremely dense gray-white mist. The visibility was no more than 1 meter, even if he kept improving the observation range of the true destiny solution. The area that could be seen was only a few hundred meters. Although it could be further improved, he felt that it was not worth the loss. He calculated slightly. With his current spiritual wave limit, if he wanted to double the range of vision, he would consume at least 1 per 1,000 of spiritual waves. The consumption in the middle was terrifying just thinking about it. He would never have been able to do it before. He understood more and more why the true destiny infinity must be completed. Only the truly infinite spiritual waves can bring other true destinies to their full potential and gain true freedom. A visibility range of a few hundred meters is fine. He took a step forward and fell into the abyss. The speed of descent was not fast. He looked around with great vigilance. The road to the lower level must be more careful. After descending about 100 meters, Lin Yi frowned. His body dodged a gray arm. This was a solid arm with gray skin. The arm was as soft as a tentacle, but twisted in a strange shape. The tip of the arm is like a human hand with 5 fingers, but the palm and 5 fingers are also twisted into a weird 5-fingered shape. This arm is flying in the mist, constantly attacking, trying to catch Lin Yi. Lin Yi's figure quickly dodged, and his eyes looked at the source of the gray arm. On the rock wall of the abyss, there are densely growing gray arms one after another. They are swarming from all directions, grabbing every corner of his body. Seeing this scene, he immediately knew that it was useless to dodge. The ethereal appearance appeared behind him, and a radiance of the absolute domain enveloped him. Bang bang bang. Countless grey palms grabbed the crystal wall of the absolute domain heavily. The violent power sounded like a piece of music, and the absolute domain was covered with countless cracks in an instant. Lin Yi frowned slightly. He was just estimating the power of these mysterious arms. One blow made him feel shocked. The power that exploded from each arm was at least at the level of the heavenly immortal Deo. At this time, there were at least thousands of palms densely covering the absolute domain. The absolute domain was shattered in the next moment, and countless palms pierced into Lin Yi's body. A chaotic power permeated Lin Yi's body, which was the power condensed by the Wankai method and the innate divine body. It can dissolve everything and dissolve everything. The grey power enveloped the arm that pierced into Lin Yi's body. In the grey power, countless energy types instantly exploded like a chain reaction. Just like the explosion of the universe in the chaos, the violent impact instantly destroyed everything within 10 meters around Lin Yi. However, Lin Yi was not happy at all, because the broken arm grew back in the next second. The grey arm torn apart by the explosion force just turned into countless grey powders. These powders were naturally attracted by the surrounding arms and directly merged into them. They were simply indestructible. There was a hint of solemnity in Lin Yi's eyes. The trait of being unable to be killed or destroyed was even more dangerous than being weird. The power of the spiritual wave exploded instantly, covering the chaotic light around him. He fell rapidly into the abyss like a cannonball. Along the way, a large number of arms formed a huge network to block the way. However, after these arms touched the light around Lin Yi, they would instantly cause a big explosion. After the explosion, their arms would be completely destroyed, and this time the arms could only grow out. After the explosion covered by the spiritual wave, these arms were shattered, and the hidden trace of weird essence would be forcibly extracted. Without the characteristics of the weird essence, the remnants of these explosions would completely lose their activity. Lin Yi was like a meteor, moving straight down. The lower he went, the more arms there were. In the end, they were almost densely packed, even blocking the entire abyss. If a person with trypophobia was here, he would probably be scared crazy. Although Lin Yi also felt uncomfortable, he was still sinking. And his speed was getting faster and faster, and under the blessing of the boundless true destiny, he was not hindered by anything. At least 9 days and 9 nights passed in the blink of an eye. Through the connection between his mind and the main body of the Wanchaiwu, Lin Yi could judge the passage of time. He didn't know to what extent his speed had increased. The view in front of him was wide open, and he finally reached the bottom of the abyss. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 986. Finally, he passed through the area blocked by the arms and entered a pure and empty area. There was only grey twisted fog and invisible airflow around. He fell near the rock wall, and the True Destiny solution allowed him to confirm that he was still in the abyss and had not left here. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow dot. Looking up at the countless arms above, it was obvious that some changes were about to happen. He began to continue to descend, quietly observing the bottom and the surroundings. However, after descending more than 10 meters, a layer of grey twisted light film appeared below. His eyes lit up, and he came to the light film and looked towards the direction of the rock wall. The downward rock wall disappeared at the position of the light film, and it was obviously at the bottom. Below is where the abyss really leads. However, he did not rush through it rashly. The light of the true destiny solution flashed in his eyes, and he was observing carefully. The other side was pure gray, and there was no other color, like a desert of life. Through the true destiny, he quietly observed the gray world. A trace of gray breath slowly floated up from the light film. After entering the abyss, these gray breaths will change rapidly. Turned into a piece of twisted gray fluctuations and mist, constantly climbing upwards. It seems that the distortion in the abyss is generated from this gray world. He can feel that this gray contains a weird essence. Thinking of this, a trace of solemnity appeared in his eyes. This gray breath seems to be a little special. The power of space in his hand flickered, and instantly enveloped the gray breath that appeared below. The power of space enveloped this gray breath, and then something amazing happened. The power of space could not block this gray breath at all, and it would even be infected. This gray breath silently merged into the space power used by Lin Yi. Then, the space power mutated. This group of space power is about the size of a palm. With the integration of gray breath, countless twisted vortices began to appear on the surface and inside. Then, a substance produced by the fusion of space power and gray breath grew out of these twisted vortices. This substance looked like strange arms, with all kinds of shapes, but all with traces of twisting. In just a breath, the space power condensed in his hand completely turned into an unknown existence. Countless arms twisted wildly and attacked Lin Yi's palm. These tiny arms had strong attack power. If it was a cultivator of the human immortal path, I'm afraid these arms would pierce his body on the spot. Each tiny arm can exert the power of the human immortal path. This change surprised Lin Yi. If this breath flows into the void world in large quantities, I'm afraid that all time, space, matter, energy, and soul will be infected and mutated. Is this the source of the strange mutation? What is the source of this gray power? A chaotic brilliance permeated his hands, covered with rich spiritual waves. Instantly, the mutated group of arms was completely shattered. Looking at the light film under his feet, Lin Yi wanted to try to pass through and carefully experience the world on the other side. He stood quietly on the light film, feeling a little hesitant. He felt a sense of peeping, something was watching him. This kind of induction came from the deepest part of the soul, a sense of crisis that could not be described in words. He had this feeling too few times. With the protection of the true destiny, almost nothing could make him feel this kind of crisis. Looking carefully under the light film, he had a hunch that the danger should come from below. Thinking of this, the brilliance of the true destiny solution in his eyes began to continuously increase the upper limit of operation. The spiritual wave began to consume a lot, and the upper limit of consumption quickly increased from 1,000,000 to 100,000th, or even 1/10,000th. This huge and boundless power all gathered in his eyes. Everything was analyzed in front of him, the range of vision gradually expanded rapidly, and an extremely broad macro perspective appeared in his eyes. Below was a huge and boundless gray world. Even if the true destiny solution was operated to the current level, he could not see the end of the gray. But there were still some things exposed in his sight. An eye made entirely of smoke appeared in the majestic and huge world below. The sense of crisis that Lin Yi felt came from this gray eye, which seemed to have a will, a pure malice. The malice without any emotion seemed to be focused on by this eye with malice just because Lin Yi was alive. What was even more terrifying was that from the light of the true destiny, he saw an inexplicable strange gray light deeper in the eye. This light gave him a serious sense of crisis. As if he had encountered a natural enemy, a flash of inspiration flashed through his mind. This power can hurt the mind. Lin Yi was shocked for the first time. He had never encountered a power that could damage the mind. The power of the mind can only be countered by the mind, and its essence seems to be a power that can change everything. But the huge, gray, foggy eye below has the power to hurt the soul. This shocked him. Thinking of this, he began to observe. This matter is very important to him. He must determine the extent to which this mysterious eyeball can hurt the soul. Thinking of this, a group of spiritual waves in his hand slowly gathered and turned into a green ball of light, which gathered a large amount of spiritual waves. He slowly squatted down, and the hand covered by the true destiny boundless and true destiny perseverance, together with this green ball of light, instantly passed through the grey film. However, when passing through this film, he felt that his hand seemed to touch a ball of something as hard as soil. He had to use a little force to pass through this film with the hardness of soil. After feeling this resistance, his heart condensed slightly. This film seems to be able to block the entry of spiritual power, and the characteristics of true destiny are affected. This power can 100% affect the mind. His arm passed through this film, and the spiritual wave in his hand fell rapidly downward like a cannonball. Its target was the giant eyeball made of fog. The spiritual wave ball, with a faint green glow, shuttled through the dense grey fog. Then, something amazing happened. After the fog and the spiritual wave came into contact, the two were like water and fire, and a fierce conflict occurred. They quickly consumed and neutralized each other, truly neutralized, and turned into nothingness. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 987. That was a neutralization phenomenon. Lingbo did not consume the weird essence from the grey mist. Instead, it was truly neutralized with the weird essence in the grey mist, and both forces disappeared. This surprised Lin Yi. This was the first time he encountered a force that could truly neutralize Lingbo since his debut. These grey mists contained a weird essence, but it seemed to be more advanced than ordinary weird essences. Ordinary weird essences, under the power of Lingbo, had almost no resistance and would be directly sucked into the Lingbo sphere for transformation and absorption. I felt a little heavy in my heart. This should be the real origin of the strange place. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. But what I can see now seems to be only a very shallow layer. There should be a deeper place under the grey smoke eyeball. This place suspected to be the origin of the strange place must hide deeper secrets. Lin Yi's face changed and shook his head gently. There is danger below. With my current strength, it is also dangerous to go down. I can't take this risk. Thinking of this, Lin Yi knew that this exploration had come to an end. Looking up, his whole body was shrouded in a green light, and he rushed towards the blockade formed by countless arms. His speed was amazing, and it was much easier to go up than to go down. The higher he went, the smaller the obstacles were, and the faster he was. In the blink of an eye, it was a day and a night, 9 times faster than when he came here. After rushing out of the foggy abyss, Lin Yi did not stop, but continued to fly towards this twisted border. In a blink of an eye, a few minutes passed, and he had left this twisted area and stood on a black sea. The sea was raging with completely disordered waves and storms, and all the terrifying natural forces kept appearing and disappearing. The breath of death was everywhere, and everything could be crushed to pieces. Woo woo woo. A strange roar sounded from afar. The next moment, above the waves that covered the sky, a huge shadow of tens of kilometers slowly fell. This shadow was just above Lin Yi's head. Looking up at the sky, Lin Yi's heart suddenly jumped. It was a huge claw, a claw similar to a human foot but with 4 slender and sharp toes. The terrifying and unimaginable power came down, and anything would be crushed. The violent power crushed everything, and all storms and waves stopped under this kick. Lin Yi frowned slightly. The strange land is different from the void. There is only one layer of time and space here, and there are no countless layers like the void. There is no possibility of hiding in other time and space levels. Facing this sudden attack from the sky, he can only use his true destiny to dodge. The simple power fluctuations emitted from this foot that fell from the sky have reached more than 100,000 times the fluctuations of the heavenly immortal Deo. The strange world cannot be understood with normal thinking. This 100,000 times the power fluctuations of the heavenly immortal Dao is also the first time he has seen it. Most of the strange ancient beasts that invade the void world are basically the things with the highest power level. Generally, there are only thousands or tens of thousands of heavenly immortal Dao power fluctuations. This kind of ancient beast is usually extremely huge in size, so it can accommodate more power, and its shortcomings are also obvious. Because of its huge size, it is a complete target in the void and will be cleansed by various powerful attacks. However, it is not easy to kill these strange ancient beasts. It often consumes countless energy and hundreds or thousands of war machines for siege. The mysterious strange existence in front of us has reached a power of 100,000 times, completely surpassing all records of strangeness. The result of this is that the power currently appearing in the void in the strange land may be only a small part. The truly more powerful and terrifying strangeness has not yet appeared. The strangeness is different from the creatures in the void. Their power cannot be immune. Therefore, a system like the immortal monks who take the immune route must rely on external objects to deal with the strangeness. Like other power systems, there is not much advantage. So the system that can infinitely raise the power has never been cut off in the void, because of this reason. When they deal with the strangeness, the effect is really too great. Rumble. The space in the strange land was violently twisted and shaken, and everything was shattered under this kick. The giant foot stepped into the sea with a bang, and it is unknown how much matter and strangeness were destroyed. Lin Yi was still floating above the sea. The kick passed through his body without causing any impact on him. Then the giant foot continued to slowly rise and retracted into the sky, and slowly fell towards a distant place at a distance of countless miles. It was obviously a strange existence passing by, and it didn't even care about Lin Yi at all. Looking at a huge shockwave rising in the distance, countless rain and materials fell from the sky, and even strange corpse fragments. Lin Yi shook his head slightly. The strange place is too chaotic. No wonder the void has not been able to explore some useful information from the weirdness for countless years. In this chaotic environment, a little problem will be swept away by disaster. It is a luxury to want to survive. I wonder how many people will be sacrificed every year in an exploration team like Rinwudi. With a slight sigh, he vaguely realized that any information about the strange land was written in blood. The surroundings gradually calmed down, and the sea water in the sky turned into endless raindrops, falling like a waterfall. The entire sea surface turned into a world of heavy rain. Lin Yi looked at the sky of the strange land, and an idea came to his mind. What is the sky above the strange land? Thinking of this, he encouraged his own strength and rose to the sky. His speed was as fast as light and shadow, and he flashed for more than 10 kilometers, and his speed was getting faster and faster. After 10 minutes, he had risen to a range of thousands of kilometers in the sky. The higher he went, the thinner the strange power seemed. He looked down, and then his pupils shrank slightly. The strange land revealed part of its appearance in his eyes. The surroundings were still endless land, and there was no end in sight. Under the light of the true destiny solution, it can be seen that the ground and space within the field of vision are completely disordered. A kind of tiny particles composed of a strange essence make up the endless land and space below. The distorted area, looking from the periphery to the center, is extremely similar to the shape of an eye. Lin Yi even felt that this distorted eye seemed to be looking at him, as if it had discovered something interesting. Then, something weird happened. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 988. An inexplicable distortion appeared out of thin air around him, completely enveloping him. The spiritual wave was rapidly consumed, and the space around him was collapsing in the distortion. Countless orders that originally existed turned into chaos. If an ordinary strong man was here, with the collapse of this basic order, this strong man would not be able to maintain his existence in this world at all. He would be directly wiped out, turned into the most basic particles, and then swallowed by the strange land. Feeling this strange change, his brows frowned, and a trace of solemnity appeared in his eyes. Could it be that the distorted area below is also some kind of strange existence as a whole? Weirdness is something that cannot be described or understood, and the most dangerous of them are some inexplicable phenomena. You can't even find the enemy, but it will exist and even affect everything. It will silently bring you into the realm of death. Taking a deep breath, Lin Yi did not intend to stay here any longer. The figure flashed, and it quickly evacuated to the distance, while descending to the ground of the strange land. Quickly move away from the gaze of the distorted area to avoid being attacked again. A few minutes later, he landed in a safe place, which was an invisible wasteland. There were some strange things walking on the wasteland, some of which did not even have a specific shape, just a ball of mud. They kept rolling forward on the ground. Some were black winds, and wherever they blew, they would even swallow up the weirdness within the coverage. Those weirdness would turn into fragments and powder in the breeze, and then blend into it, and eventually become part of the breeze. Even if it was weird, it seemed very dangerous to survive in this weird place. If you don't pay attention, you will be swallowed by other things and become someone else's nourishment. The most terrifying thing is that the weird place is giving birth to weirdness all the time, in various ways. For example, at this time, a stone at Lin Yi's feet was mutating. The stone softened quickly, and then grew pieces of tumors to wrap it. Then all kinds of weird limbs grew on the tumor, turning into a kind of alien body that was somewhat similar to a spider. As soon as it appeared, it attacked Lin Yi directly, as if its purpose of birth was to attack Lin Yi. Lin Yi frowned slightly, and he felt the natural malice of this strange mutation. With a flick of his finger, a chaotic energy shot out, covering the monster and directly grinding it into ashes. A trace of strange essence was drawn into the spiritual level and dissolved in the spiritual wave sphere. He shook his head slightly and took out the token in his hand. The next moment, a faint glow appeared on the jade token. A few seconds later, a huge vortex appeared above his head, and a strong suction instantly enveloped him. Lin Yi disappeared in this black vortex, passed through a layer of squeezed black channel, and saw infinite brilliant time and space flashing around him. Then, he appeared on a huge platform. The 3 presidents of the Void Destiny Committee are here. Let's go back to the palace to talk. The president raised his hand and waved, and a faint space fluctuation enveloped several people, and the next moment, they returned to the central palace. The eyes of the Soul Master, the master of the fairy palace, and the president fell on Lin Yi. What did you see this time, Mr. Lin? Lin Yi thought about it, and without hiding anything, he told them all the information he had seen along the way. There was no need to hide this information, and after telling them, there might be unexpected discoveries. After all, they have existed for too long and know a lot of information that he could not know in a short time. After listening to the information Lin Yi said, the faces of the 3 presidents changed. Among them, the breath of the Soul Master fluctuated most violently, as if he had thought of something. Lin Yi looked at him. Soul Master, do you know something? The Soul Master was silent for a few minutes, and then slowly said, I have always had a hidden worry about the spiritual world problem that Manager Lin mentioned just now. Everyone heard the words and quickly became alert, and their eyes were fixed on him. You should know that I am practicing the way of the soul, which is the path closest to the spiritual level. I have also been studying the power of the mind. Through various means, I have studied the systems of countless worlds, and finally I have mastered some spiritual power. Among them, I have mastered a method to let my true spirit enter the spiritual level. This is my ultimate secret skill. Once I cannot obtain the eternal path in this world. This is my last means of escape, completely abandoning everything in the void and existing in the spiritual level with the true spirit. And I have allowed part of the true spirit to merge into the spiritual level. In that level, I have vaguely seen the mysterious existence that flashed in the infinite darkness. The mind is a wonderful place. Perhaps it is because part of my true spirit has merged with my own mind, which has produced some wonderful changes. That is, my mind will become silent and will not emit any light or fluctuations. You should all know that as long as you can feel the spiritual level, you will find that there is eternal darkness there. And our mind is the only thing that shines there. This light is named the light of the mind. Because part of my true spirit merged with my soul, this spiritual light was completely restrained, and my soul became pure darkness, blending into that dark layer without leaking any information. Then, on a dark spiritual level, by chance, I noticed something flashing through the darkness. That thing passed by not far from where my heart is. I felt a huge sense of danger. It's a danger that could put me in danger of death. Based on the information provided by Mr. Lin, I have a guess. The spiritual level may be like this vast void. The soul of every living being is just like the world groups in ancient times. Once civilizations between world groups come into contact with each other, war will break out first. Only people who are evenly matched can sit down and negotiate. The weak will be destroyed in the conflict. The dark law of the jungle. The psychic level seems to be governed by this law. Anyone who cannot control his own mind and cannot contain the light of his own mind is like a civilization that does not yet have any outsider level powerful people. Facing a civilization with powerful outsiders, it's almost like being defenseless. If my guess is correct, the minds of all living beings at the spiritual level are actually in a very dangerous state. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 989. Perhaps in that world, those mysterious unknown spiritual beings are feeding on the souls of living beings. And the reason why those beings left traces in the void world and established civilization is only one purpose: to mark the coordinates of the living beings in the void. All the living beings who heard his voice will have their souls exposed at the spiritual level. Then become the food of that mysterious existence. When everyone heard this, they were instantly shocked. Feeding on the souls of all living beings, this method made them feel terrified. Only Lin Yi said slowly, if this is the case, what changes will occur to the creatures whose souls are devoured? In theory, the soul, will, and life of such creatures have not been damaged at all. But his soul should disappear, and some strange changes should occur. Everyone frowned slightly when they thought of this. It is difficult for them to guess what the consequences of the soul being devoured will be. At the same time, they had another idea in their hearts: could it be that the method of cultivation at the spiritual level is to devour the souls of other organisms? The four looked at each other, with a hint of strangeness in their eyes. According to the information obtained from Lin Yi, they have found the specific direction of spiritual cultivation. That is a power system that can grow by itself. The president said slowly, the spiritual world is a world we have never touched. There is no practice method that blooms 100 flowers. Perhaps devouring is the oldest practice system. Just like the life in the void, the oldest existences follow the laws of nature. From herbivores to carnivores, and from carnivores to top predators. Perhaps this void and the spiritual level is a huge food chain. We are a group of herbivores, and those unknown existences at the spiritual level are carnivores above the food chain. Perhaps devouring is the fastest and best way for them to practice. And we don't have the devouring ability like them, so we can only strengthen our minds through practice. Just like self-reliant herbivores, we continue to grow ourselves and then become prey to carnivores. The president of the Void Destiny Committee analyzed all this from the perspective of the natural food chain. All things are interrelated, and the most basic natural phenomena can often explain everything. A trace of heaviness appeared in everyone's heart. They found that the void might still hide secrets that they had never touched. At this time, Lin Yi slowly said, in ancient times, the disappearance of the ancient gods may have an answer. They are very likely to have all gone to the spiritual world. Become one of them. Because that mysterious altar is the one they sealed. They must have discovered the secret hidden in the altar a long time ago and deduced the danger at the spiritual level. Add to that the weird invasion of the void. The weird power that even they can't resist. Then, choosing to go to a place without weirdness, a place with a higher level than the void, is the most reasonable way. Moreover, they must have obtained their own eternal power. After integrating into the mind, they can directly reach the realm of spiritual embodiment. After that, it will not be a problem to completely invade the spiritual level. When everyone heard this, they were shocked and then they were all silent for a while. According to Lin Yi's analysis, this is completely possible and very logical. The hearts of several people sank again, and they seemed to see the harsh environment of the void. Weird invasions, hunters of the soul, mysterious beings hidden in the dark, a chaotic void, an uncertain road ahead, no one knows what dangers will arise. The president slowly said, "Mr. Lin, are you interested in joining our Void Destiny Committee?" Lin Yi looked at the president who sent the invitation, thought about it, and slowly shook his head. "I am not interested in joining any organization. But I will try my best to provide you with enough spiritual wave weapon systems. Our future is not pessimistic. With the spiritual wave weapon system, the void will be able to turn defeat into victory sooner or later and drive back all the invading weirdness. At that time, the creatures in the void can also communicate with each other and constantly deduce the spiritual system. When a large number of powerful people in the void can control their own minds, then we will also have a place at the spiritual level. We will not be completely reduced to food. After all, intelligent life forms are best at learning and growing. Even if there are top hunters at the spiritual level, as long as our number reaches a certain level and the power of the mind reaches a certain level, there is also a chance to kill them." Listening to Lin Yi's words and looking at his firm attitude, the president took a deep breath. "Okay. I hope everyone will work together to survive the disaster of the weird invasion this time." Lin Yi left the central palace and returned to the Wanchai. This time he gained a lot, especially the mysterious text that recorded 9 rules, which contained countless secrets. At this time, the Blue Star clone was already studying these 9 rules. He was integrating these 9 rules into the mechanical Daohen universe. With the integration of the texts recording the 9 rules, the mechanical Dao trace universe is changing at an astonishing speed. The texts of the 9 rules constitute a unique mechanical Dao trace world. And this mechanical Dao trace world, under the influence of the power of the mind, is extending one mechanical Dao trace after another at an astonishing speed. These mechanical Dao trace are obviously different from the mechanical Dao trace evolved from the 5 major rules in the void. This mechanical Dao trace world composed of 9 rules has the same effect as the mysterious crystal in the hands of the Blue Star clone. That is, it can evolve various acquired rules and speed up the construction of the mechanical Dao trace universe. Under the auspices of the Blue Star clone, the mechanical Dao trace extended from the void rules and the mechanical Dao trace derived from the 9 text rules can also be combined with each other to construct a cycle. All the mechanical Dao trace worlds he originally accumulated are breaking and reorganizing, becoming new Dao trace small worlds, Dao trace middle worlds, and Dao trace great worlds. At this time, 30 mechanical Dao trace great worlds have appeared in his mind, and there are 10 imaginary Dao trace great worlds. The world formed by countless principles, each of which has boundless power. The power limit of any place can reach hundreds of Tianxian Dao level energy fluctuations, which is extremely powerful. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 990. The dozens of Dao mark worlds can mobilize the spiritual power to the extreme. At this time, the Blue Star clone has become his real killer. The power that bursts out can even be comparable to the fluctuations of the heavenly immortal Dao at a level of tens of thousands of times. Feeling the growth of the mechanical Dao Mark universe, Lin Yi was slightly happy. At this rate, his Dao Mark universe will be completed in a few years. At that time, his combat power will be increased to an astonishing level again. At this time, the human immortal Dao clone is still in the House of Time, refining the spiritual wave transmission device day and night. During this period, more than 10 billion spiritual wave transmission devices have been refined. He is waiting for the God's domain to open again, and then he will start a big sale. At the same time, the world group that can be connected to the Void Fate Committee has obtained the spiritual wave transmission device early and started to clean up the weirdness within their own world group. This is a war that is destined to last for a long time. The first goal of all world groups is to clean up the weirdness within the world group. Then it is to clean up the weirdness between world groups in the void. You have to eat one bite at a time, and war is never completed in an instant. A battle line with the spiritual wave transmission device as the link is slowly forming. And Lin Yi is the center of this battle line. The great changes in the entire void that have not happened in billions of years have begun. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days have passed, and the God's Domain card is emitting a faint light. Lin Yi's thoughts have come to the God's Domain again. Under his feet is still the golden silk network, and the scene of the entire void is condensed under the network. The naked eye can see countless whirlpools appearing in every corner of the life void. Whether inside or outside the world group, it has fallen into chaos. Even quite a few world groups have extinguished their brilliance, obviously that is the place that has been breached. Lin Yi only appeared in the God's domain for less than a few seconds, and one after another appeared in every corner of the God's domain. Then the information board appeared in front of Lin Yi, and countless friend edition information was flashing. His eyes flashed slightly, and then he directly posted the information in the task release area. The task of purchasing the Lingbo transmission device and the manufacturing method of the Lingbo weapon system. Hundreds of billions of transactions were completed in a short period of time. Lin Yi could see that countless exchange rewards were displayed on his information board. That came from hundreds of billions of world groups. At this time, the number of inheritance items he had harvested had reached 270 billion, or even far exceeded. A world group could provide him with at least tens of millions of inheritance items. Hundreds of billions of world groups could provide him with countless inheritance items. This was his biggest gain, which meant that the imaginary Daohen universe of the Blue Star clone would be completed in a shorter time. The massive amount of materials collected would also be used to manufacture the Lingbo transmission device, which would help more world groups. Although the void was full of chaos at this time, a glimmer of hope was rising in every corner. The Lingbo weapon system was like a light in the dark night, illuminating the way forward. In the blink of an eye, a whole void year had passed. During this whole year, Lin Yi was working hard to refine the Lingbo transmission device. Hundreds of billions of world groups received these things. Then these hundreds of billions of world groups, like isolated islands in the dark void, firmly guarded their own world groups. At the same time, a huge alliance has been established. The name of this huge organization is the Hope Alliance. This huge alliance has only one purpose, which is to liberate the entire void. All the strange forces that have been cleared out of their own world groups must send people to form a larger army. Through the void wormhole, all occupied world groups are expeditioned to recover one after another of the almost destroyed world groups. Doing so is good for everyone. After cleaning up, those world groups that have been destroyed will become new territories for various organizations. At this time, the void has hundreds of billions of world groups under the rule of the Alliance. There are more world groups waiting for their recovery. However, this is not an easy task. It takes a long time and more power to do it. In the life void, there are tens of billions of world groups. At this time, only hundreds of billions of world groups have been rescued, and these world groups have diluted most of the alliance's living forces. The current alliance not only has the creatures in the original hundreds of billions of world groups. There are also strong people from unknown world groups, who have crossed countless distances and come to the control area of the alliance. At this time, within the hundreds of billions of world groups ruled by the alliance, even between world groups, there are war fortresses one after another. A completely controlled area has been formed, where no weirdness can survive. Any weirdness will be eliminated as soon as it appears. A large number of large energy devices are placed on these war fortresses one after another. They are connected to each other to form a huge formation covering hundreds of billions of world groups. The energy transmission device is the node of this huge formation, allowing the power of the spiritual wave to cover the entire area. This suppressed the appearance of weirdness and made this place an absolutely safe area. The Xuanhuan has become the absolute center, and countless forces are waiting for the production of energy transmission devices. Now the energy transmission device has become the most important factor restricting the expansion of the alliance. Many people are dissatisfied with the slow production of energy transmission devices. Some people are even secretly carrying out some kind of conspiracy. On this day, in the Xuanhuan, the Soul Master appeared in front of Lin Yi. Lin Yi looked at the Soul Master who appeared. "How come you have time to come to me today?" The Soul Master sat opposite the third clone, looked at Lin Yi and said, "Do you know the recent situation?" "What situation?" The Soul Master glanced at Lin Yi. "It seems that you don't care about the outside world at all." "I am busy making energy transmission devices every day, so I don't have time to care about the outside world." The Soul Master shook his head slightly. "You should pay attention." "Forget it, I'll tell you. You should know that there are currently hundreds of billions of world groups that have been controlled by the Hope Alliance. At the same time, the strong and races of other world groups have fled to the Hope Alliance area. Now there are a large number of races relying on various war fortresses, hiding in the saved world groups. Among the world groups, a large number of destroyed world groups are also being rebuilt. The entire Hope Alliance is a busy and prosperous scene.